So what we see here is the ability to call a query set on the product model. We're doing it on the model because of objects. Objects is actually considered a model manager. That is, it's helping us do things like a query set or a get call on the actual model itself. This is called a model manager. So objects is representative of the model manager. And then the filter in there is a model manager method that allows us to do that query set or a get call or a create call or something like that. So model managers make things easier for us to do our lookups. Now, sometimes we want to have model managers that are just a little bit more effective, right? So all of this stuff that I did right here, this is an example of something that I might want to make a little bit more effective. Sure, I might want to every once in a while do get object or 404, but maybe I want to use some way of finding an instance without being a 404 error, right? Or a exception error. So maybe I want to turn this entire block roughly into a shortcut where I can do, instead, I'll say instance equals to product.objects.get by ID. And then I do something more like that, right? Where I just pass it in and this gives me that instance. In order for me to do something like this, to actually have this work, I have to create my own model manager. I actually have to override the default model manager. And we do this, of course, in models. So model manager would exist in models, and it does. So we're going to come in here and say class product manager, and it's models.manager, capital manager. And we're going to say define get by ID, and we're going to have it take in self ID. And we're going to return, first we're going to do the basics of it. We'll do self.get query set ID equals to ID. Okay, and now that we've got that, we've got to wrap it in. So we just say objects equals to product manager. So this is not overriding any of the defaults. It's just extending to it so that something like this would actually work. So let's just keep it up there, and I'll go ahead and print out the instance. We'll save that and take a look. So we got get query set has unknown argument, ID equals to ID. Oops, made a little mistake. And it actually should be get query set.filter. Right, so this portion actually takes the portion of product.objects. That's roughly what's going on here. So get query set kind of takes over that in a way. I mean, it's really just getting the query set that's being called. So that's just something to note. Okay, so now that I do that, I refresh, it's working. I go to my terminal, I get this query set. Okay, so that's step one, but that's not what we want. If we think back to what we just did, let's go ahead and just cut this out and say QS, as in query set, if QS.count equals to 1, we'll return QS.first. Otherwise, we'll return none. So now it's actually getting the object. So this is the individual instance, the individual object, and we refresh on that view. What do you know? We've got hat there. So I can change my view one more time to being that. And I'm going to go ahead and comment all this stuff out. And we'll say if instance is none, because it could return none, then we'll raise that 404 error. We save that, refresh in there, and there we go. So if I change it to something different, like 34, I get that error, and all of that is coming from here. So how do we do this in the get or the detail view? Now, it's actually fairly straightforward. We do get object, and it takes in self, args, and keyword args. To get the request, we do self.request. To get the PK, or the primary key, we'll say PK equals to self.keyword.args.get PK. And now we're roughly where we were. All we have to do is here is return the object or the instance. So we can actually do the same thing as we did below. And we now have these, both of these working the same, right? We actually don't need this query set method on here anymore because it's going to look it up. So let's do products 3. There you go. Still looking up fine. Still looking up fine. All of that is working exactly as we sort of expect, or as intended, right? There is also one called the get query set method, or define get query set. And it's, well, it's pretty much the same. So we can get the request here, and then we can return whatever query set we want, or if we want to filter it, so I can actually get rid of that as well. So when it says get query set, you can actually use this same thing. We'll do args and keyword args. You can also do the get query set method on the detail view instead of the get object method. So I can do this, and then same with that primary key, bring that back down, and I can filter it down, pk equals to pk. Okay, so that's another way to do the detail method. So there's definitely a lot of ways on how you can update and change class-based views. But the main thing here of what we wanted to talk about was more about how the model managers can interact with any given object. So you can also override the default methods, like all. You can 100% override that if you want. I'm going to leave that out for now, and we're going to leave it at this. So if you have any questions on what we did here, please let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.